Welcome to the podcast, Cancer Simplified. This is Duncan Darrow, and I will be the host of the Cancer Simplified podcast. I'm the founder of Fighting Chance, and for 22 years I've run the charity, which is the East End's only free cancer counseling center. At our clinic in Sag Harbor, we have a staff that has included oncology social workers and clinical psychologists. They have provided over 5,000 free counseling sessions to East End cancer patients who feel the disease is eroding their mental health and their emotional well-being. The goal of our podcast, sort of like our free counseling, is to simplify what cancer is all about so that the disease will be easier for patients and caregivers to understand, not to mention the general public. In most circumstances, the medical experts who are available locally at Stony Brook Medicine can provide the highest standard of care, but there are a few times, really just a few, when patients must travel to specialized treatments in New York City cancer centers. If you enjoy listening to Cancer Simplified, you can go to Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform and download other episodes of Cancer Simplified. We hope you enjoy them. This is Duncan Darrow again, and today's topic is one that we have returned to from time to time, which is what I call the people-to-people dimension of the ongoing discussion in this country about cancer. And those of you who are listening are aware that some of our previous broadcasts were really about the science of attacking the disease and providing people with ever longer survival rates. But there's also a lot that's happening that's about their mental health and their emotional well-being. And so we touch upon that from time to time as well. And we're going to do a little bit of both today. We're also, and this is about our 7th broadcast, we are also now officially freelancing for this broadcast. And I say that because the first topic I'd like to discuss with everyone is right there on the front page of the New York Times section called Science Times. And it says, "More time is a gift, but how to use it." There's a picture of an attractive woman. And what it explores is stage 4 cancer, probably something everyone's heard about, not something you'd ever want to hear from your physician. And the fact that stage 4 cancer is extending, it's not quite the so-called immediate death sentence that it used to be. They note that today there's probably 30 or so people among the cancer community being treated with cancer who have stage 4, and that's up from about 17% if you go back to the 90s. I will say I have a little bit of direct experience with this because about the first thing I did after my mother died of cancer, which was sort of my inspiration to somehow help out others, I spent a year at East End Hospice as a volunteer. And the folks at hospice, some were, really actually almost everyone was outpatient. They all had cancer, and most of them had stage 4 cancer. And what volunteers would do is go with the social worker to call on patients. So I saw quite a bit of stage 4 cancer in those days, and you didn't last very long, and it was kind of tough at the end. Thank God for some very good painkillers. So what this article is about is, yikes, I'm not going to be dying tomorrow with stage 4 cancer. I'm probably not even going to die in the next few months. I could have years ahead of me. and how do I think about that challenge and address it? Um, and what this article talks about is a particular woman in her, I don't know, like mid 40s, who's been diagnosed. The cancer keeps creeping further along. She has a husband, happy marriage, house on Lake Superior. Pretty cool place for a summer house, but she lived in Minneapolis, and and how they cope with it. And it really is not about the progression of stage 4 cancer. It's really about the opposite, the lack of progression. That here's this woman in her 40s, and she's going on like year 4 as a stage 4 cancer survivor, headed towards year 5, all of which is basically unheard of if you go back earlier in medicine. And it simply makes a point that when people are given almost like a gift of extra years that they did not imagine, and that the experts even 10 years ago did not expect. Kind of what do you do with that gift? How do you live your life on borrowed time? So that's what I took from this, as just a general theme. And Doc, you were going to talk about a couple things that you've seen, including, I guess, some reflection on this article.
Just to reflect, I mean, what you've pointed out is that about a third of patients now who are diagnosed with stage 4 cancer are alive 5 years later. And part of the journey that you've spoken about is when you hear that you have metastatic disease and consider it a death sentence, the first thing you do is put your affairs in order and try and make the most of what little time you have left. If it turns out now there are improved treatments, some of them immunotherapy, some of them chemotherapy, some of them a combination of the two with specific antibodies that are linked to powerful chemotherapeutic or radiologic agents to deliver treatments directly to the tumor cells in various locations. The fact is that for some people, cancer, even when metastatic, has become a disease that can go on for many years. And people who are now alive 5 years or more, sitting there saying, when is the other shoe going to drop? And have basically made the decision that they're going to just live out their lives as well as they can in as normal a way as they can, participating in their usual activities. So it's become a little bit of a dilemma. I mean, you can draw a parallel to HIV, when initially AIDS was a death sentence, and now it's more like a chronic disease managed with medications. Each year we learn more and more about what cancer cells are, how they work, what the genetics and biology behind them. And for some cancers, targeted treatments are extremely effective. And so, yes, people with lung cancer, with breast cancer, with other types of cancer that have spread outside what would be surgically curable, now don't have a cure, but are living more than 5 years and continuing on treatment that seems to keep the cancer under control. So it is a great step forward. We used to consider that if you were alive 5 years after diagnosis, you were mostly cured. But now we have a group of patients who are alive more than 5 years, but are definitely not cured of the disease. We've just managed to keep the disease in check by using advanced treatments as well as the body's own natural immune response. So it's a very promising future.
You know, it's interesting reading this article. As people know who are listening to our broadcast, the part of the cancer journey, excuse me, that Fighting Chance is focused on is the patient's mental health and emotional well-being. We're not oncologists. We don't treat cancer, but as this article makes pretty clear, there are these mental health and emotional issues that kind of go along with the medical journey, and that is where, you know, Fighting Chance intervenes. I'll just maybe tell one more story to illustrate. Guy who I knew for quite some time, who was a priest, and we became fairly close. He wasn't my spiritual advisor or anything, but we were just good pals. And he was diagnosed with lung cancer after he had left the parish, after his work as a clergyman had technically ended. And he was diagnosed with lung cancer, serious, and he started getting treatment at Dana-Farber. I talked to him frequently, as I always had, and he maintained, a stiff upper lip and good morale. And the idea was they were going to shrink this lung cancer tumor to a smaller size where they should be able to operate and essentially extract it. Pretty typical approach to lung cancer these days, unless the tumor is lodged in a part of your lung with other kind of, plumbing that makes it hard to remove. In any event, that's what he went through at Dana-Farber. And actually, he called me one day after a visit to the cancer center. He said, "You're not going to believe this, but today they told me the tumor's now disappeared. The chemo that was supposed to shrink it so they could extract it with surgery has actually killed the whole damn thing." And we laughed, and we laughed with such a great moment to share with him. But then I said, half serious and half not, I said, "Darwin, I said, in a sense, you've been given a gift. The good Lord is probably because you were a clergy that you got this deal from God, but your cancer is gone, and I don't know. Have you thought about what you're going to do with the next 2 or 3 years or longer now that you're cancer free?" And he laughed a bit. He said, "You know what? That's kind of a frightening topic to think about, but I'm starting to think about it." And so there are just so many moments, whether they just kind of give you pause in the late stages of cancer. It's just a more complicated field. There are more people going through it. And just one other thing I would mention: one of our therapists who had spent 10 years at Memorial Sloan Kettering, very sophisticated. What she says about the patients she sees who have whatever stage of cancer. But she says, "Duncan, the medicines are getting stronger. Yes, they extend your life, but, they take a lot out of you." And she said, you may hear about combination therapy or great chemo or CAR T and so forth. But he said one of the issues she deals with her patients that is in the domain of mental health and emotional well-being is these people, the drugs just kick the crap out of them. They get home, from a 3-hour infusion, which used to be just ho-hum chemo, and, they take a nap and feel better. They don't feel better for at least a couple of days. It's really very draining, and that's another dimension.
I think you're right that, although these treatments can be very effective, there are side effects. And just as surgery really requires a period of recovery, some of these treatment courses also do impose a period of recovery. But I think the message for the patient that, you mentioned from the New York Times article is just because you have the diagnosis of stage 4 cancer, it's not time to sell your beach house and get tethered to the hospital. That, in fact, there's a good potential, at least a third potential, that you'll be enjoying your life and will be around for 5 years. So it is it's an interesting time we're living in. You know, these wonderful therapies, even the immunotherapy, do have side effects. You know, you're targeting things on the surface of cells that tell the cells to grow, multiply, and travel. But those things that you're targeting are also important in normal biology, so that you do end up harming normal physiologic mechanisms as well as the cancer cells. So everything has side effects. You have to manage them and live with them.
You know, I think about my brother who passed away. He was a lawyer like I was at age 64, so kind of early to be lost to cancer. But he tried, you know, everything. And one of the things he tried was a stem cell transplant. I'm sure some of you listening may know of it or have familiarity with it, but basically they are either taking your cells, or in his case they found cells that were kind of a match from another guy who was a soccer player in Germany. In any event, they put that into you and infuse it, and hopefully it starts generating a new environment that's much more, you know, oriented towards curing the disease and killing off cancer cells. The problem, the one that he encountered that I thought was so horrendous, was before they put these new cells in you, they give you a blast of chemotherapy that would just blow your mind. And I said to the nurse, as my brother was sitting there moaning and groaning, I said, you know, compared to previous chemos he's had, which were bad, but, you know, by the next day he was, you know, sort of walking around smiling. How much more devastating, how much more powerful is this induction chemo to wipe out like every cancer cell before the operation? She said, Doug, it's like 5 times worse. And I thought, oh, Pete, I'm so sorry for you. You know, it's quite a thing, I'll just say.
Well,
so Doc,
it is a mixture of you know, an era where we have high hope and a lot of new treatments, but we still haven't escaped the side effects and the uncomfortable aspect of getting treated and the pain involved. At the end of the day, though, if you can live for more than 5 years and have some good, high-quality life in that period of time, it's really ends up being worth it. You know, we struggle against all diseases. It's not just cancer, and all treatments have potential side effects. We've come a long way, but we can't get over the fact that we also do some harm while we're doing good.
So, as we kind of come to the end of this broadcast, 2 kind of final thoughts. This is, I think, about our 7th or 8th time together, Doc, and you know, this is the first time we haven't really had a script or kind of planned out what we were going to say about the topic, because this very moving, relevant article about stage 4 cancer survival was just like, boom, right there on the cover of the 3rd section of the New York Times, and we felt we could talk to you, our audience, about it in a useful way, and hopefully we've accomplished that. The other thing I wanted our audience to know, which is, you know, an exciting moment for us that have worked so hard on the broadcast. We are now getting in, I guess you could call them the equivalent of Nielsen numbers. Many of you remember Nielsen ratings for television, and there's now something roughly equivalent for podcasts, which isn't surprising because podcasts may take over television before too long. In any event, when we started this, we had a consultant type for a couple hours, and we put together a couple things to get the word out. And I said to him, like, how many people will listen to us? Are we just talking to ourselves, or you think we might attract a few people? And he said, well, it's an interesting topic. It's different because you're talking about a very familiar topic, but you're not doing it, with a white coat on. You're lay people. And sure enough, the numbers started coming in, and I'm excited to share with the audience that the most highly rated segment that we have done, which is called Teach Me to Pray, the number of listeners to that so far is just a little bit over 15,000, which we think is an exciting number and probably makes us want to do this more. So with that, can we have some music to get us off this broadcast? There's that music again, which means we're coming to the end of this podcast. By all means, first of all, visit our website, fightingchance.org. At the top of the homepage, you'll see a podcast button. Press it and you can gain access to this podcast and all the other podcasts that we've prepared. The homepage also lets you click through to other services of Fighting Chance, which are available to residents of the East End of Long Island. For example, there is counseling appointments to help patients get through the highs and lows during the battle with cancer. There are free local taxis to get you to cancer-related doctor appointments on the South Fork. There are free Hampton Jitney tickets if you need to see a specialist in New York City, such as Memorial Sloan Kettering. And there's also a free local resource guide, about 25 pages, that we produce in partnership with the American Cancer Society. If you have any questions about what we've discussed in this podcast, please email them to admin@fightingchance.org, and we will try to get back to you individually or answer your inquiry in the next podcast. Oop, there's that music again. Time to go. Hope you tune in again to Cancer Simplified, brought to you by Fighting Chance. To support Fighting Chance and the free services we provide to East End cancer patients, please donate at fightingchance.org.